the Eagle Badger podcast.
Moving quickly on, we will look at the job figures. A couple of days ago, the National Bureau of Statistics released unemployment figures for Nigeria. I'll read a quick story from Premium Times again. The headline goes, Nigeria's unemployment rate rises to 27.1%. So the story goes, Nigeria's unemployment rate rose to 27.1% in the second quarter of 2020, the National Bureau of Statistics said on Friday. The report comes several quarters after the Statistics Bureau released its last report in 2018. The new rate is an increase from 23.1% unemployed in the third quarter of 2018. The Nigerian economy has been hit by the impact of coronavirus amid depleting oil revenues. Experts have said that the economic downturn will affect employment generation as companies cut costs and lay off workers to stay afloat. Obviously, the unemployment figures have risen from 23.1% to 27.1%. If you break down the story, it shows that, I'm trying to see if I can find the story. It shows that women have been impacted more than men by unemployment. As expected, young people have borne the brunt of this. And it's crazy because when you look at combined unemployment and underemployment, it's up to 55.7%. Youth unemployment has gone up to, again, combined unemployment and underemployment has gone up to 63%. Only 1 in 3 young people are in full employment today in Nigeria. Women, again, has gone up to 63%, as badly hit as the youth. And I think the worst statistic when you look at the breakdown was the NBS did a breakdown of job numbers or unemployment by education level. It's more like you are more likely to be unemployed if you have a university education than if you just attended primary or secondary school. So if you are a graduate, your odds of being unemployed are higher than if you had just, done primary school, taken your primary school leaving certificate and entered the job market. Only 40% of BSc holders in Nigeria are in full-time employment. And, it's the thing though is that if you look at the states, so we have been discussing, the global unemployment figures. If you look at the states, it's a mixed bag. So you have Imo State, for instance, having 75% combined unemployment rates. It's crazy. Only 1 in 4 in Imo State is in full employment. The most shocking, I think, was Kaduna State that has 73% unemployment and underemployment. Looking at Kaduna, that's surprising because of what appears to have been the good work they've been doing in agriculture and ease of business. I think they were rated number 1. All the foreign direct investments coming into the states. Maybe that's been all of those gains have been eroded by the insecurity in the state as well. But that's the state with the total highest rates of unemployment. I think for me, the outlier, and it's something that we may look to, is that some of the states that had really, really high, so 2 points, some of the states that had really, really high security issues, Zamfara, for instance, and Borno, had relatively low unemployment figures. Zamfara was 14%, I think only beaten by Anambra State, for instance. And And the other thing was that between 2018, when the last job report was published, and now, about 10 million people have left the labor force. So the labor force is actually smaller than it was in 2018. The MBS doesn't give a reason as to why this has happened, but maybe you have something to say about that.
Yeah, also, you see, very interesting report. First, let me commend Mr. Yemi Kale of MBS, and the fact that they've been very consistent in adopting almost the same procedure without actually trying to buckle under political pressure, from politicians. Even though I know that they were concerned that the initial report that was released is it deleted or probably taken down, kind of. But nevertheless, this report is out, and a lot of people are digesting it. I know that politicians are either uncomfortable or comfortable with this report simply because sometimes your political opponents, extract the data from this report to actually, to campaign against you, especially if it's an election year where reports and data are very, very valuable to election campaign. You see, why some Nigerians will continue to criticize the MBS report, and rightly so, is something that we are not actually looking at. Is the Nigerian population figure is a rigged one. It is not thorough. Our population figure is not thorough. It's not the real population figure. So that's why some people are saying that they cannot understand, except maybe we also have to look at certain things sometimes, in terms of comparing Borno, Yobe, Zamfara, and also possibly Imo and Akwa Ibom, for instance. Yeah. I also agree that in Akwa Ibom, Imo, you have more graduates, you have more people, looking for probably jobs than you have in Borno and Yobe. But what will continue to cause concern is our population numbers, now. However, I think that when you look at the case of Borno, Yobe, is it that of young people packing out of the states that they've gone to fend for, survival? Possibly, some of them are in the IDP camp, and also the same thing applies to, Zamfara and others. So basically, I can't fault the MBS, the statistics that have been used. You don't let us forget that this is a data that is coming against the backdrop of the COVID-19, pandemic, and also the lockdown, whereby, a lot of people have lost jobs. Aside losing jobs, some people have graduated, are looking for more jobs, So a lot of youths, are available with little or nothing, to do. So the numbers are alarming, and it has worsened from what we have in 2018, and it's probably continue to get, worse. Now that it's even the fear now is the fact that we've been projected that Nigeria is headed recession. Some people are saying it's depression, and I don't know if we have anything to be able to salvage this situation. What that means is that the job numbers, unemployment number will continue to tank one way or the other, because we are not likely, I don't think there is any silver bullet, to be able to solve this problem currently, and I have not seen any robust intervention to address this concern. So it is not enough, just to release the numbers, the fact that we have the willpower to be able to address it. I know that some governors are now making a political capital, trying to take this as something political and something that is not okay with them. I heard that is it the governor of Akwa Ibom has rejected the number. Yes, that the governor of Akwa Ibom has rejected the number, believing that they've created jobs, created lots of opportunities for Akwa Ibom youth. And look, nothing says, let's get this also very important also. Nothing says a state cannot have its own independent reports. Nothing. That is why you have a Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Economic Development. That's why you can have a unit to look into your state statistics. Nigeria is a federation, and the nationals are reasonably. I don't think there is any law, any law in Nigeria that prohibits a state from, generating its own data and ensure that there is consistency, because the value that the MBS has had is the fact that there is a consistency and they can defend the mechanism and the methodology for generating their data, their analysis, their findings. They have everything to defend it. Any governor who is not satisfied, or any level of government that is not satisfied with the data that is coming out from MBS should please, go beyond criticism. They should put in place their own research methodology for assessing, their own data, socio-economic data, every week, every month, year in, year out, so that they will be able to show to MBS that indeed you have not fact-checked us, reasonably well. So the numbers are quite alarming and not quite encouraging. And like I said, the COVID-19 has worsened things, for a badly run economy. So I'm not expecting anything, positive from that result when we heard that result was going to come out. In fact, many Nigerians would have expected that it would have been probably more alarming, that by now they would have been talking about almost about 30-something%. But again, it's not too bad, really, for an economy that is already almost in a comatose. And I believe that the only thing we should be talking now is how to salvage this economy, because the numbers are quite, and numbers are very important. And for anybody also at the center who wants to also debunk this number, they should also very important that, it's also very important for them to know that the numbers were always there when, some people aligned with, the fact that Nigeria was not growing well. So I think we should commend the MBS and commend their head, Mr. Yemi Kale also.
So just quick housekeeping. I think the MBS is the only body permitted to publish statistical information. It's very similar to the National Population Commission. So you would expect that states would be able to publish statistical population data, but it's only the Population Council that can actually go about and take a census. And it's little things like this that I think get in the way of our progress when you are hampered from finding out how many people are in your state, from finding out how many people have jobs, etc., and you have to wait on the federal to come down and provide this information for you, regardless of how good they are. So that's a problem there.
But I don't think, I don't think there is any specific law. And I believe there is a way this can be circumvented. I believe there is a way that, for instance, in terms of even the population number, the only thing is just that the federal government will not work with your number. They will not work with it. But I don't think the federal government has the power to prosecute a state for, trying to get the numbers in that various states. I remember vividly that Lagos State, remember during the last population census, when Lagos State was put at par with Kano at 9 point something million, and Lagos State told Nigerians then that based on their own internal, examination, that Lagos State as at that time was close to about 20 million people, and they challenged the federal government, that to that effect, that the figure that the federal government had put out was an underrepresentation of the population of Lagos. So I believe that the state should go beyond just criticizing, the figures that have been made available to actually bring about, what they think is the real fact, but it has to be scientific. It has to be research-based. It must be proven. It must be empirical and can be independently verified by any other person. That's my take on that.
Yeah. So again, thank you. So just going a little bit deeper into the numbers. Akwa Ibom was doing. Let me get the figure out. Akwa Ibom's job numbers was 45. This is just unemployment, not unemployment and unemployment. Akwa Ibom's unemployment numbers were 45.2%. If you combine it with underemployment, which was 21, Akwa Ibom's unemployment goes up to 67.9, about 68%. The next Niger Delta, the next South state was Bayelsa. Bayelsa's unemployment was 28%, 27.8, 28%. Cross River's unemployment was 31.6%. Delta was 40.3%. I think the only South states that came off, below the national average was Edo State at 19%. And it leads you to ask that why would the states that produce Nigeria's oil, the South, why would they have such horrible job figures? And there are several things. I think one of them would be that, and this is an argument that was put forward for Rivers particularly, was that Rivers and Bayelsa, is that the exploration of oil, because most of these communities were fishing and agrarian communities, and the exploration of oil has damaged fishing areas and has damaged farmlands. So you find everybody looking for, city jobs, because rural jobs do not exist. Either looking for city jobs or going off into the shadows. So you're having your modular refinery, your artisanal refiners. You're having your pseudo security forces, and again, you also need to understand that remember there was a divide between primary school graduates and university graduates. Down south, you will find more people going to finishing secondary school and going into universities. And that's unfortunately the demographic that is unable to find jobs. But again, with the resources accruing to those states, it's problematic that you'll be having such a high level of unemployment. Interestingly enough, the NBS says 10 people have fallen off the labor force. I'll give you an interesting statistic. People who have been added, who are now on the social register, receiving handouts from the federal government, are about 10 million. I think they're about 11 million now. So is there any correlation between people who have stopped looking for jobs and people who have now been onboarded onto the social register, receiving handouts from the federal government?
Some of these state governments probably, maybe they should hear this from someone like me. Let me say, from what I can deduce sometimes from certain things that they are doing, not very well, is in the process of awarding contract. Look, some of these things, projects are not cast in stone. If you want to construct a road project, you go and give it to a Chinese company, you give it to a foreign firm, and those ones are going to put a lot of calculation into it. Now, there are a lot of things sometimes that you can take off some of these things. For instance, there are certain constructions that you can decide to, engage 2,000, 5,000 people to get along, or probably when they are doing their contract, specification and arrangement, and probably they are able to agree with the firm that is, handling it, the number of, people that will be employed to work on, on some of these contracts. It should be people-centered, people-driven. And there is no reason why some of these states should not have engineering department that can handle reasonably, some road constructions, not all road constructions I know, but, village roads, township roads, and some of this, they should be able to graduate up to that level in such a way that, almost all the manpowers are domiciled within the state. That's a way of, creating wealth, getting the youth busy and employed. But every now and then, small contracts is awarded to a foreign firm. Small contracts are awarded to somebody somewhere. That's now to govern. The countries today that are doing well, the developed nations, they looked inward, to be able to help themselves. If they didn't do that, there wouldn't be angels. Angels didn't come from heaven to construct roads for some of those other countries. They grew from point A, from
Yeah.
the lowest part. They grew, and we are not making any effort at all. Everything, if it's not China, if it's not Julius Berger, if it is not this, no. At what point in time are we really going to get it well? So, for me, I think that the governors who are complaining about the data for MBS, I think is totally, unreasonable. They should have an independent assessment if they think they are not comfortable. I think that's my own assessment of this, and I think it's also a clarion call on the federal government to know that, look, things are really getting very, very bad, and there is need to act now. Unfortunately, we are borrowing more, going into debt. In fact, I didn't even check that of Osun State. Do you know Osun State is in a very precarious situation currently now? I think it's a 90% of Osun State allocation is spent on, servicing debt, and that's scandalous. So,
But let me surprise you. Osun State's unemployment figures 15.3%.
that's interesting.
I think Osun State is a civil servant state. And
Yes,
you also remember that it's an agreement. They do a lot of farming there as well.
absolutely.
And these job figures capture, white collar jobs, blue collar jobs. So
And the young people don't stay in that state. They all move to Lagos. That's why all the states around Lagos, Osun, the young people move to Lagos to go and look for jobs.
the federal government says it's going to create 774,000 jobs by giving 1,000 jobs in each local government, each of the 774 local government areas. But it's saying that it will be paying people about 20,000 a month, which is less than the minimum wage even. So the federal government, will come out and boast that it has created 774,000 jobs during a pandemic. But the truth of the matter is that those jobs are barely that. You could barely call them jobs because they are below the minimum wage. They have not a living wage. But it is a way of getting money into the pockets of people in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of a recession, in the midst of the fact that we are currently the poverty capital of the world. So I cannot be too critical of that scheme just because I'm aware of the fact that we are a very, very cash-strapped nation.